Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense. It's the show where me and John talk about pro wrestling and whether or not it makes sense. And this week, we are talking about Biggie, the happy character from the WWE, who, his wacky shenanigans with the New Day and also by himself, some might argue, don't always make sense. Pancakes and whatever, the unicorns. Stuff like that. Interesting how all that fits into the aspect of pro wrestling. But tell you what, man, he's entertaining.
Hell yeah.
The guy's charismatic. He always he never screws stuff up on the mic. Even or in the ring. He's pretty crisp. He's pretty good at what he does. And very recently, he cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase contract, whatever, and beat Bobby Lashley for is it the Universal Championship? Is it the WWE Championship?
The actual WWE Championship.
I mean, it's hard to keep track, isn't it? Sometimes because they switch brands all the fucking time. I don't know which one's which. You know what I mean?
I mean, they haven't switched very a while now, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, they have two heavyweight championships. You're like, how are you the World Heavyweight Championship if there's another World Heavyweight Champion over there?
Because it's the Universal Championship. He's the champion of the universe.
That's right. My mistake. You see, they were clever. They didn't call them both World Heavyweight Championships. One of them's the champion of the universe. And could you find a better person to be champion of the universe than Biggie?
Roman Reigns is the champion of the universe, so.
Oh yeah, fuck. I see how confusing it is. I'm so confused. Don't worry, Biggie. You'll get there eventually. You'll get there. You gotta conquer the world first, and then you become the Universal Champion. That's what happened with Roman Reigns. He was the World Heavyweight Champion, then he became the Universal Champion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't look into these statistics. Just assume I'm correct, okay? Anyway, don't worry about it. We're talking about Big E, and he beat Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship, and we're all very happy for Big E. Congratulations, Big E. I assume you're listening to this. What with this being the only wrestling-based podcast in town.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta say congratulations. Did you watch Raw? Did you see what happened?
I didn't watch Raw, but I did watch the cash in. So I've seen how it all played out. Yes.
Okay, I haven't seen it, so feel free to spoil it for me. But there was a match between Randy Orton and Bobby Lashley, and then Big E cashed in after that match, right?
This is correct, yes.
So Lashley had beat Orton.
Yeah, he'd kind of picked up a little injury to his knee, it seemed like, during that match with Orton. So he was a bit weakened, I guess you could say. But yeah, he after some shenanigans on the outside with MVP and Riddle, he basically surprised Randy Orton with a spear, beat him, then sort of beat up Riddle a little bit as well. But then Big E's music hits, and he comes out with the briefcase, having teased that he was going to cash it in earlier in the night. And then they had like a very quick match. It wasn't like anything to write home about. They pretty much just did a few moves, like Big E taking out the knee, then setting up Lashley for the big ending, but then Lashley escapes and hits a spear, gets a 2 count, and then Lashley picks him up, looks for the Dominator, but then Big E escapes and then hits the big ending, and everyone goes home happy.
Nice. How long has it been since people went home happy after watching an episode of Raw?
Yeah, way too long.
It's about fucking time they did something good. Although, to be fair to them, I don't think the problem with Raw was the World Heavyweight Championship scene. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
Lashley had been doing great stuff.
Yeah, but the Goldberg feud wasn't exactly
the Goldberg feud. Okay, the Goldberg feud is never a good sign, right?
No.
You can always put that aside and be like, well, that's a month we'll never get back. But the shit with Drew McIntyre is pretty good.
Yeah.
So. Because Goldberg's not going to be around forever. We all know this. He turns up for a month and he disappears. So we can disregard him.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever Goldberg's not here, the main event scene is usually pretty good. I mean, it's the rest of the show that I think is the problem. You
Yeah,
know what
oh
I mean?
yeah, definitely.
It's their 3 hours of Raw and their non-existent tag team division and their fucking stupid backstage skits and all the other bullshit. That's the problem with Raw.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big problem with it is that it's 3 hours. We've talked about this ad nauseum, and I think that that's just a problem they're not going to fix purely because it makes them too much money.
Yes, exactly.
It's a shit show, but like it doesn't have to be good because it makes them money, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
I think is bizarre. I don't get it at all. I think they should have just made like the first hour of Raw like superstars or something. Just make it like a showcase for their new talent you want to get over, like newer talent or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the last 2 hours of Raw is just Raw.
But that's just too logical, man. That's like you want the company to succeed.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm an old sentimental at heart, aren't I? I'm a real character. But disregard all that because we're talking about Biggie. It's quite a mix up, quite a surprise. And I know a lot of people think that this is probably in reaction to the momentum that all Elite Wrestling have had on their side for the last few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
last month or so since CM Punk turned up.
Well, not just since CM Punk turned up, but All Out as well, which, coming out of that pay-per-view, it was pretty much universally praised as one of the best pay-per-views of any company from, the last 10 years or so, at least. So,
Okay, I haven't seen the pay-per-view. I don't intend to. However, I'm gonna just say that I do not believe that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the surprise returns doesn't make something automatically great. Although it's nice that people could get excited about stuff like that. I do find that nice. It's nice to see CM Punk. It's nice to see Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson as he is now.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff's interesting. I mean, my question to you would be: you've been watching that show or that company since all of this stuff's happened, right?
Well, yeah, the one Dynamite that's happened, I haven't seen anything else.
You haven't seen the episodes of Rampage or the last months of TV?
No, I've just seen that one episode of Dynamite, and that's been it.
Okay, because I'm wondering, they have all these guys turning up, which is really cool, and everybody's interested. But I'm like, has their show been any better? Because if suddenly you're getting a lot of because I've seen the lineup for some of these episodes of Rampage, and it doesn't seem like they're loading it up with their best shit. You know what I mean? But whenever they've got all their eyes on them, and like we said, all the momentum, all the buzz, people are talking about them, and enough to make the WWE seemingly pull a move like this on Raw. But have they done anything worthwhile with these guys, or are they putting on shows that make people want to stick? Like if you heard that CM Punk was going to be on the show, and you watched the show, would you see anything else on that show that would make you want to stick around for the non-Punk stuff? You know what I mean?
Well,
That's
I think
what I'm wondering.
it's definitely like a big smorgasbord of different things on the show. Where I think, if you tune in for CM Punk, you're bound to see something else which will, catch your eye and hopefully keep your interest. So there's stuff like, they did the Moxley versus Suzuki match last week, which a lot of people were really interested in and hyped up about. Like a lot of New Japan fans and whatnot.
But was it good though?
Yeah, it was a perfectly fine match. It wasn't the best match in the world, but it was also exactly as advertised. Just two guys beating the shit out of each other.
Fair enough.
So that was a nice, fun match, which apparently wasn't quite on the level of one they had, I think, earlier this year or maybe like a couple of years ago, but whatever. I had not seen that previous match, so for me, this one did the trick, and I enjoyed it. And what else did they do? They continued to like tease Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega, which I think is a match that most people would want to see, being that, Kenny Omega just got #1 in the PWI 500. Bryan Danielson, obviously one of the best wrestlers in the world for the past 20 years. So, I mean, yeah, that's sort of a dream match right there. Then you got other stuff. You got MJF dealing with the fallout of losing to Chris Jericho and seemingly moving on. I mean, you can laugh, but the story kind of had to end with Chris Jericho beating him the way they'd set it up. So
I feel like the story just had to end.
Yeah, well, you could say that as well. Yeah.
Well, see, that's good that AEW, because here's the thing, and this applies to the WWE as well. If, for example, they teased that Biggie was going to cash in his contract on Raw, so people might tune in to watch Raw to see that happening. Are they going to watch stuff on Raw that's going to keep them entertained? You know what I mean? That's the trick. That applies to both companies. If you can have all the buzz and yada yada, but you need to put stuff on that show to make people keep watching and be interested in your show. Otherwise, they're just gonna fall off again.
Yeah, and last night's Raw had Alexa Bliss giving Charlotte Flair her own doll called Charlie, which I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it's not something that too many people are probably going to be interested in.
Yeah, we weren't asking for that. I don't think. I don't think you and me were begging for more Alexa Bliss puppet bullshit.
Yeah, but then they also had like Drew McIntyre still feuding with Jinder Mahal, despite the fact he steamrolled him at SummerSlam a few weeks ago. And what else happened? Oh, and they did a bunch of stuff with the women's tag team titles, just 2 singles matches between Tamina and Nikki Ash, which apparently had a really badly botched finish. And Natalia versus Rhea Ripley, which was by all accounts much better.
I mean, no shit, dude. It didn't have Tamina in it, so it's gonna be automatically good.
But yeah, I mean, it's I
mean, to be fair, Natalia versus Rhea Ripley, that sounds like a good match, right? I would watch that match. But yeah, exactly. Like, Drew McIntyre, who at one point not that long ago was a real bright spot in this. Every episode, dude. Every episode. He was a real high point for Raw or for WWE in general. That guy did a really good job. And now he's sticking around with Jinder Mahal. Nobody really wants to see it. I think because nobody wants to see Jinder Mahal.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, again, this applies to both companies. They're starting to get momentum right now. They've got people that the audience do want to see, and there's people that the audience don't want to see. We were talking about Baron Corbin off mic. And Jinder Mahal, like, do the audience really want to see those people, or are we just cursed to have to, deal with these 2 idiots all the time? It's tricky. So I don't know, man. I mean, I'm psyched that Biggie won the championship. Like I said, I feel like little moments like that aren't gonna change too much. I think that fundamentally there needs to be a lot more stuff to change to make it worth people's time. I mean, 3 hours is a lot of time to dedicate to a TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if it sucks, like Raw has. They need to do a lot more, a lot of damage control, I'd say, to kind of get, not just to get people back, but to keep people there, And Biggie being the champion, I think, is a good start.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with this at all. I'm a big fan of Biggie as well, and I'm super happy to see him win the world title and see like this outpouring of love and respect from fans online and his fellow wrestlers, not just in WWE, but like, all over the wrestling spectrum of companies and whatnot. But he's, clearly a popular guy and someone who deserves that spotlight. So it's great to see him take it. But at the same time, like you say, it all feels very reactionary. Like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of, like WCW back in the day. Like, cast your mind back to I think it was July the 6th, 1998, which was the night that WCW hot-shotted the world title from Hollywood Hogan to Goldberg in the Georgia Dome in a match that had only been advertised since the previous Thursday's Thunder, and that was all in response to WWF like beating them in the ratings the previous week with like a 5.4 rating, I think it was, because of like the fallout from King of the Ring the night before. So,
well, yeah, I mean, to be fair though, that King of the Ring, people still talk about it today. So good God, how could they compete with that?
yeah, but I mean, it just goes to show, like, they did that, and then they won the night's rating, and so yeah, that's all well and good. But then they went on to lose the next 4 weeks straight. So it's one of those short-sighted things where they probably ended up costing themselves way more money in the long run, because if they'd actually kept that Hogan match for like a pay-per-view and continued the build for it, then they could have, made a shit ton of money from that. But they kind of blew their wad going for the TV rating, and wasted an opportunity there.
I mean, you say that, but this isn't the first time that the Money in the Bank contract has been cashed in on a TV episode.
No, I know, but this is one where there was no build to it whatsoever. There was a slight tease on SmackDown that Biggie was going to show up on Raw this week, and then him on Twitter on Monday saying that he was going to cash it in. But it's not like they have been doing anything with Biggie before that to kind of prep him for this either. Like, yeah, he had that big Intercontinental title run earlier this year, and he's been featured as the Money in the Bank winner like since he won it, but he's just been doing bugger all with Baron Corbin for the last month or two, and it's not exactly good a good way to heat him up ahead of something like this.
I mean, I agree that pairing somebody with Baron Corbin isn't always a good way to get them super ready for something like this. But like, as I said to you before, I feel like they've kept the pressure on Biggie. They have a habit of just dropping the build for people a lot of the time, and I don't think they have done that with Biggie. I think since they split him off from the New Day, they've actually done a pretty decent job of like focusing on him as a singles competitor and focusing on him as a guy that can work outside of the New Day. He won the Intercontinental Championship. He won the Money in the Bank. I feel like they have kept the pressure on him, surprisingly, because this is shit they don't seem to do anymore. They've actually done a semi-decent job of building him up. So I don't think that it's too, I don't think it's too crazy of an idea for them to do. And also, like I said, the Money in the Bank has been cashed in on episodes of Raw and SmackDown before with like no fanfare. Like you said, Big E tweeted and said, "I'm gonna cash in tonight. Watch the show." There's been times when that hasn't happened. It's been a big surprise, and there's been no build up at all. It'll just happen, which was part of the draw of the Money in the Bank briefcase to begin with. The idea that it could happen at any time, that surprise factor was what they were banking on people tuning in for. And over time, they oversaturated, like they do with everything. They oversaturated it and had, like fucking, we already had somebody as a Money in the Bank champion or holder, like not that long ago. Wasn't The Miz the Money in the Bank holder like a couple of months ago, beginning of the year? You know what I mean? Like the surprise factor of the Money in the Bank has long since gone. So the fact that they did actually say for Big E to come out and say, I'm doing it tonight, watch the show, is interesting. It actually means that they fucking did put some thought into it for once.
I disagree entirely.
But like, you know what I mean, though? It feels like they've just they've focused on it being a surprise for way too long. Nobody ever, except for like Rob Van Dam, ever declared when they were going to cash their Money in the Bank championship thing in. They just held it and then would cash it in whenever they wanted. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
some people did, but I think this instance is just it's just really short-sighted. There were, like I say, Biggie wasn't exactly doing much except spinning his wheels in SmackDown for the last month, as good as the rest of his year has been. And it's surely no coincidence that they do this the same week, the week after, AEW has all this buzz coming out of All Out.
Mm.
And they have a high rating edition of Dynamite, where it was the second highest in the show's history. They scored like a 0.53 in the 18 to 49 demo, which actually beat out Raw last week. It's like this isn't a well thought out decision to put the title on Big E. As cool as it is to see him with the title, it's clearly something that they're like concerned that all of a sudden AEW are like, nipping at their heels sort of thing. Kind of, they've got all the buzz, they've got all the sort of goodwill of the fans out there, whereas WWE has been, you could say they've arguably been pissing off their audience for years, but because they knew that they were the only real game in town and could get away with it, they could afford to do that. But now it feels like it's a whole new ball game. It's like they're not the only game in town anymore, and AEW are making all these positive strides, and so WWE are starting to panic. Even though, let's face it, it's a long way off before AEW are gonna like topple the WWE's monopoly on wrestling, but there's still no doubt that they've got all the momentum behind them, and people like fans like genuinely excited for the product. Whereas WWE, audiences have been really apathetic about it for such a long time, and they kind of are tuning out and have been in droves for the last several years. So it's no wonder that WWE are concerned.
But again, though, I think that, it's Big E being the champion is a good start, because I feel like by this point, he has shown that he can work as a singles guy. He has shown that he's, super good on the mic. He's got charisma. He can. This feels like it's more of a time. I agree that it's certainly a timing issue, but I feel like this was a sooner rather than later thing. Like Big E has proven that he can work and that he can talk and that he has what it takes to be the champion. I think he could totally do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like certainly they might have hot shotted it a little bit. There wasn't a whole lot of build to it. I'll give you that. But I assume it's going to lead us to Lashley versus Big E in an actual match at whatever the fuck the next pay-per-view is, Extreme Rules.
I think so, yes.
Which I'm okay with. I'm down for that. So long as they don't. Here we go. So long as they don't fuck it up.
Well, that's a big ask.
Yeah, because if you've been following this podcast for as long as we've been around, this seems to be the thing we're always concerned with. We're like, wow, the WWE did one thing good. Can they follow up with it, or are they going to fuck it up? And most of the time, they've been fucking it up. I think you and me can both agree on that, which is to your point in the fact that the people are are disinterested with the WWE just because of the kind of lackluster product they've been putting on, and the fact that they have a habit of just doing dumb shit for no reason.
Yeah.
It's not surprising that people would be more interested or getting buzz for a show like AEW that has potential. I mean, I've been pretty critical of it for a long time because I don't think that they're really delivering on a lot of on a lot of that potential. You know what I mean? I think they have all the potential in the world, and I think they're squandering it much the same way WWE are. And I would like both companies to kind of pull their socks up and do a better job. But I think Big E is the right guy to I mean, I don't want to say he's like the next Brock or anything like that, but he's got that kind of swagger about him, that confidence on the mic. You know what I mean? And he can work a match. That's the kind of guy you want on. He's like, if they actually do this correct, and again, that's a big if. I understand how monumental that if is, but if they actually do take this seriously, Biggie could be the guy. He's so good. Like he's really, really good, and he doesn't have to be a William Regal in the ring. You know what I mean? He just needs to be able to do his job, and he can do it. And I think that he would be a really good champion if they don't fuck it up. And that's the thing. I can see it happening. You know, you can already see in your head the multitude of ways that they'll find to fuck this up. Like, for example, you know, after Extreme Rules, here comes Baron Corbin again. You know, it's the problem they have is that they haven't really built up a whole lot of interesting main event characters, right? You got Bobby Lashley, he's great, he's a heel. You've got Drew McIntyre, he's great, he's a face. But what is Big E gonna do after he's finished fighting with Bobby Lashley? You know what I mean? I assume there's gonna be some kind of blow off between Randy Orton and Matt Riddle that'll keep them busy for a couple of months. So hopefully we won't get Orton versus Lashley straight away. I assume that Orton's gonna be busy with some other stuff, but after Lashley's finished, like what do you do?
It's always AJ Styles.
No, AJ Styles versus Big E. I'm down for that. This is it, right? If we sit and like fantasy book it, we're like, this could work out really well, because I have no problem with AJ Styles versus Big E, Lashley versus Big E, even Orton versus Big E eventually. So long as they don't fuck it up and put the belt on Orton. But like, these are interesting matchups, right? If they do them, if they go down that route, you know, I feel like this is a really, this could be the telling point, right? If they are really like doing this as a reactionary thing to AEW, then this is going to be the starting point as to whether or not they're going to be able to follow up with it. Like we said, they have a very good track record of doing something interesting and then fucking it up almost immediately. Now they have to keep the whole thing going. They need to keep this momentum. They need to keep coming up with interesting matchups and interesting storylines and giving us a reason to watch. You know, you were talking about how this reminds you of WCW. Not, you know, I was about to say not that long ago, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, that was 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
So what was 98? So 23 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh no. Why is time moving forward like this? This isn't the way it's supposed to go. What the hell? It's supposed to stop by 2005. That would have been good, you know, but yeah. But it also reminded me something of like the WCW, WWF thing, in that what did the WWF do whenever WCW picked up all their old stars? They made new ones. They made new, young, interesting guys. They got The Rock. They got Triple H. You know, Austin had been around for a while, but they got other people like that. And they made their own new stars that were really interesting. In comparison with WCW, who had just picked up all of the old cast-offs from WWF. Now, you fast forward to now, AEW have just picked up a lot of cast-offs from WWF. Not that I'm saying Adam Cole is old, or even, you know, Punk and Bryan Danielson aren't that old either, but you catch my drift, right?
Yeah.
You understand where I'm coming from. And now they have the chance to, well, not the chance, they have done, they put the belt on Big E, a new fresh face in that scene. So I'm like, this, you know, again, the potential is there for real, proper, actual, interesting change. Because we remember how much fun it was whenever, I know, I know, the potential is there, and they probably won't take it. But like, you know, the reason that the Monday Night Wars got so hot was because of stuff like this. It was because the NWO were doing their business, but also the WWF were building new stars that were really interesting. And if that happens again this year, or like around about this time, then once again the real winners are going to be the fans. We're going to have a great time watching all this stuff unfold, right?
Yeah.
Because even if those other guys that I'd said are kind of cast-offs from WWE, they're all really good. They can still go. They can do entertaining shit. And if in response the WWE finds Biggie and other people like Biggie and puts them to the top of the spot and makes them interesting and can generate interest that way, then we're all winning.
Do you remember like 2 years ago when Kofi Kingston was WWE champion and they had him lose to that bright new star Brock Lesnar?
I know. I
what's
mean,
the chances of Big E's reign ending at Brock Lesnar's hands as well?
Somebody's like, what are the chances of his reign losing to fucking Goldberg in Saudi Arabia? And I'm like, that is all because that's what happened to Bray Wyatt. And I'm like, yep. Again, you make good points. Again, I know it's a giant if, and I have a habit, or I have a sneaky feeling the WWE will do what they always do, and fuck it up, But then again, like it's. Oh, I want to do a sidebar real quick because I was thinking about this. I find it very interesting that your new young up and comer and superstar Brock Lesnar made a return to SmackDown. And Becky Lynch made a return to SmackDown.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting because if you were to say which of the shows sucks the most and needs the most kind of star power to it, most people would have said Raw.
Absolutely. And the ratings sort of reflect that as well. SmackDown's been kicking Raw's ass in the ratings for a long time.
So isn't that interesting that Brock Lesnar went to SmackDown instead of Raw? And Raw is focusing on guys like Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre and now Big E.
Yeah, I think there was some stories recently about NBC, who's like, the home network of Raw, not being happy with WWE for sending, both Brock Lesnar and Becky Lynch to SmackDown, which, you can understand because those are big star names who are going to the competition essentially. But I do believe they've got another draft coming up pretty soon, like in October, I think it is. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we see all that get mixed up a little bit. But yeah.
But let me tell you this, though. Or let me ask you this. If we got a Big E versus Brock Lesnar match, number one, that'd be a pretty good match. Number two, what if Big E wins?
Well, I mean, first of all, it would be a pretty good match as long as they let them wrestle.
As long as they don't fuck it up.
Yeah. Because we saw Kofi lose in like 7 seconds to Brock and have that, really bad end to his title run. So there's, precedent there. But I think they would be a good clash of, two powerhouse type wrestlers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd want to see that match.
Exactly. So that's interesting. I wouldn't, I think that'd be a really good idea. So long as Big E wins, of course, a lot of the things we're saying have the caveat of if they don't fuck this up.
I mean, I've lost count of the amount of times you've said "if" in this podcast.
I know, and that's the problem because this is what happens with the WWE. Like we said, they will sometimes do stuff right, but they never follow up with it.
Yeah, the track record isn't really in their favor. They'll get that one thing right out of 100, and that's sort of enough to keep making people like us hope that maybe next time it'll be like 1 out of 90 or 1 out of 50, maybe even, dare we say it, like 1 out of 10 times they'll get something right.
Let's not go nuts here.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. When I think we the two of us have become so. This is why people are not paying attention to the WWE, is because people continually get burned with the potential never following up and never getting seen to. The WWE always doing something good and then always following it up with something bad. Never been able to follow up with decent storylines or having something go anymore. It'll all just turn into some kind of cartoony bullshit. And then Lesnar and Goldberg have the belt again. I mean, like, well, this is boring. This isn't fun. But like we said, there is potential here. Like, what if? And I don't want to, I don't like the idea of breaking up the New Day properly. I know they're kind of broken up. They're not really, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, Big E versus Kofi Kingston. That would be great.
I don't know, man. I don't think a lot of people want to see them break up.
I know, that's what I mean. I know they don't, but that match would be great and it would make sense from like a storyline perspective. I'm not saying it, and I hate saying it out loud now because I'm like, that's probably going to be the one fucking part of this show that WWE listen to. I'm like, no. Give us the other shit first.
I mean, I'd say it's more likely Xavier Woods versus Biggie. Like, he's the one that hasn't won the world title, and maybe he's feeling a little bit jealous because now Biggie's the champion and Kofi was the champion 2 years ago, and it's like, well, when's my time? Maybe you could pull the trigger that way.
But that's the thing. Like, they're doing the King of the Ring coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Woods has always wanted to win the King of the Ring.
There you go.
It's right there. If Xavier Woods wins the King of the Ring, he can say, "Oh, my live stream has been accomplished." But then he's like, "What? Now that I am the King of the Ring, I realize that my live stream is to be the heavyweight champion. Maybe I want what Kofi had. Now I want what Biggie has. I'm the King of the Ring. I'm next in line. That shit writes itself."
Yeah.
You would think. You would. I mean, how long did that take me to think up? No time at all, right? Which is why they're not going to do that. They're going to do some kind of swervy bullshit that doesn't make any sense. But I'm like, storylines are there, I hope that this will make the product better, But again, like we said, how many times have we said that about the WWE and just continually got our fucking hopes dashed?
Yeah, I'm far too jaded to believe that, to be honest. Like, I mean, we've talked so much in the past about Vince McMahon and his tendency to like rip up the script for Raw like hours before the show. Like, there's no long-term planning in that company. There's well, barely any anyway. But like, when you've got someone who's got the whims of Vince, which like changes, with the breeze, there's no way that they're gonna do this right. I think there might be a certain plan in place at first, and it could be a good plan, but as soon as Vince has a new idea, it's going to change direction, and then it's probably going to get muddied and watered down, and then just turn up shit like the rest of it. So I'm not hopeful at all.
Okay, I understand. I mean, like you said, we've been burned before. We have been down this road many, many times before, and every time our eyes are wide with optimism, and then our eyes are so wide it makes it very easy for the WWE to throw mud in them. They're very good at fucking us over, and we're a little sick of it, to be honest with you. Although it does give a shit to talk about.
Yeah.
I, once again, naively so, I'm going to hold out hope and believe that this might be a proper turning point.
Well, I definitely agree with you and say it's a much needed shot in the arm, and I think for that reason alone, it's created enough optimism and given people enough reason to think, oh, okay, maybe I will tune in to Raw next week to find out what happens next. Which they kind of haven't really done that for a long, long time, or at least done it in an effective way. So on that, end of the scale, I think it's done exactly what it was supposed to do. It's created some good buzz. It's given the fans something to care about, and hopefully they can do something with that goodwill. But yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully. We will see. We'll cross our fingers. Before we wrap things up, I want to also mention the fact that Biggie won the championship from Bobby Lashley,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is the first time that the WWE championship has changed hands between two black wrestlers.
Yeah, well, I think Big E's only the sixth black wrestler, or male wrestler, I should say, to win
Yes.
the WWE title.
Yeah, because we also saw Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks trade the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also this year.
Yep.
So you're like, wow, you know, good way to break down barriers, guys. But then again, like, you know, don't you think it was weird that the first like black heavyweight champion was Ron Simmons, and like, when was that? 93?
92 or 93, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it was a long time ago.
30 years ago, ish. That in itself is wild. But I think that's a really good sign. You know, again, it's not often we can say good things about the WWE. But you're like, they did right by Bobby Lashley, and looks like they're doing okay with Big E so far. So like those two black guys in the main event like that, you know, passing the torch. That's a good sign. And Kofi Kingston not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be good if there were more kind of, you know, not just black wrestlers, but like more diversity all over the place.
Yeah.
But like, to be fair, we have seen a lot of that kind of stuff. We've, you know, like we said, Kofi Kingston, and also we've got, you know, Lashley and Biggie. We mentioned Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair.
Mm-hmm.
We've also, you know, we've seen Japanese people being represented, but like Asuka as well, and Shinsuke is the Intercontinental Champion. You know, the Rey Mysterio was their tag champion not that long ago, so it's like the Latino kind of market there. Like you know, there is diversity going on in the WWE right now.
Yeah.
Which is you know, commendable. And again, it's not often we tip our hats to the WWE for anything, right? But like, fair play, man. You know.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. I hope that continues, because that helps. That really does, the diversity, because it makes your roster more interesting to watch, to look at. It sucks when it's just all 100% white guys that look the same. You know, I like this, and I hope that, again, that we can move a little further forward and do a little bit more, and you never know. Maybe Shinsuke will finally be the first, you know, Japanese wrestler to win the big one. You never know. We had Drew McIntyre was the first guy from the UK to win the belt last year.
Yeah, that's nuts that it took so long for that to happen.
Exactly. God knows everybody had their money on the British Bulldog a long time ago, right?
Oh, Wade Barrett or William Regal even.
Regal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, but it's I think it's encouraging that, you know, if you are going to be the biggest game in town, to do shit like this, you know.
Yeah.
Fair play to them for that. And also, all those guys fucking totally deserved it.
Yep.
You know, except Jinder Mahal. But even then, like, you know, that's, you know, there's some more representation there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame that they couldn't have a better world champion than Jinder Mahal and the Great Khali. You know, come on, India. You know, you got to pick it up. But that's encouraging too.
Yeah.
You know? I'd like the WWE to kind of not fuck things up. That's basically the crux of this, man. I'd like them to not fuck things up. And like we said, I feel like waves are starting to happen. You know, small waves make big surf. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a real catchphrase or not.
It is now.
It made sense in my head. Maybe it made sense coming out of my head too. I'm not sure. It sounded good, but you know, all of this stuff, it starts small, and then God knows where it's gonna go. It could end up being like another WCW, WWF war, or it could end up being like a WWE TNA war. You know, God knows where this is gonna go. But hopefully, it ends up being great for everybody involved in wrestling, the fans and the wrestlers. And with CM Punk having just come back and Bryan Danielson coming back as well, and now Big E winning the championship. It doesn't it feel like shit's starting to change and maybe things are happening now?
It definitely feels like this is the most exciting time in wrestling for a long time. Like you say, it feels like things are happening, and I don't know, it's just bringing back that sort of unpredictability about wrestling again, which is sort of one of the staples of the Attitude Era and like the Monday Night Wars. Is you never really knew what was going to happen week in, week out. So yeah, I mean, we've needed that, and I think the fact that we've got this sort of rivalry now between two major promotions on national TV is like you say, going to be good for the business, good for the fans, good for the wrestlers, good for everyone. So yeah, it's just the most optimistic I've felt about wrestling for a long time, I'd say. Not the WWE necessarily, but like just wrestling in general.
Yes, wrestling in general. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where both companies go from here. I think they're both in the boat where momentum could be on their side, and they just don't have, if they don't fuck it up, if there's that word again, I think that applies to both companies though.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like AEW have like a lot of momentum on their side. If they throw it away now, they really have fucked up, because right before this Big E thing, couldn't have been easier to take that crown away from the WWE. They were not fired on all cylinders. They were really lackadaisical about their product. Like, it would be a shame for them to throw that momentum away. So I'm interested to see what happens. We'll give it a while. We'll give it a couple of months and see how it looks, and see how long it is before Bill Goldberg wins the championship. Should be any day now. Looking forward to that. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap things up?
No, not that I can think of.
Excellent. Well, we're all very excited about Bobby Lashley. Hopefully, or with Big E. Well, Bobby Lashley too.
Yeah.
Bobby Lashley versus Big E. It should be interesting. But we're psyched about Big E. This should be a lot of fun to just sit back and watch. So hopefully it'll all be good. We're gonna be back, I don't know when, pretty soon with another episode. So if you guys want to stay in touch, make sure to subscribe and leave comments and all the other shit you're supposed to do, and pay us both £1,000 each per week. That'll guarantee you that you'll stay up to date with all the fun wrestling news. But we'll be back soon with another episode, and it'll be a lot of fun too. So I guess we'll see you guys in the next episode. If you've got anything you want to say about Big E, leave it in the comments. We'll read them, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.